Intellectual Tamanna thinks of a different plan. He wants now to take revenge on Basavaya. He doesn't want to take it in the physical level. He doesn't want to take it in the materialistic level also, in spite of his supporters and friends telling him not to be quiet, to at least take care of the three different methods of taking revenge. He says, no, I'll just have a different way, different style, and that is when he thinks, in a very quiet and intellectual manner. He is quiet. The more he is quiet, he becomes more and more intelligent, and then he starts thinking of a new way of taking revenge. So here he starts composing songs, poems, ballads and stories. He becomes more and more intellectually creative. So he writes all these things, songs and poems, and most of the songs, almost all the songs that he composed and sang, they all had only one theme in it, the meanness and the cruelty of Basavaya. They mainly concentrated on the meanness and cruelty of Basavaya. He wanted to talk about how stupid he was, how mean he was, and how cheap-minded he was in acquiring the land illegally. So he just keeps writing poem after poem and ballad after ballad. Ballad is a long poem which has a theme in it, okay, long lyrical story, long lyrical poem which has a theme, a story hidden in it. So he keeps writing all these things, and then he has lot more friends now. Other than the people and the supporters over here, he had more and more people who were the critics. The critics also came to his house. They started talking about the poem. They started discussing about the theme. They started discussing about improvising the poem also. So all this was done, and his intelligence level, it rose to a very greater height. Basavaya, who had thought that Tamanna would become, more poorer because he had taken away, land after land. He thought Tamanna would lose everything. But on the other hand, on the contrary, Tamanna became more and more popular. He got more and more property into his hand. Property is nothing but the friends that he had acquired and the poems he had created. So he acquires property, he is more and more rich now. Basavaya is unable to bear all these things, and therefore he goes into humiliation because he cannot accept, he is very jealous and he is unable to accept the success of Tamanna. To compete with him, he also tries to write poems, which is an utter failure. Everybody cannot become an artist, everybody cannot become a dancer, everybody cannot become a singer. So it has to be there in your genes, it has to be there in your blood. Everybody cannot be everything. Only certain people can practice all these things and master over such arts. So this fellow also, he tried to write songs, he tried to write poems, but it was again a failure one. He could not succeed even in doing a single poem. He also tries to sing. That was also not a popular or a successful one. So he becomes, he is completely beaten up by humiliation every now and then. He is completely, lost in humiliation. So he wants to know what he can do. But on the other hand, Tamanna is prospering. He is acquiring land, he is acquiring friends after friends, writing poems after poems. This Basavaya, he goes to his own land, his own way, and then as I have written here, he starts collecting or acquiring more and more of Basavaya's land. So his materialistic property, the land, it starts increasing, while that of Tamanna, it starts decreasing, and there is a downward movement, downfall in the property, in the land. Whereas Basavaya becomes more richer and richer when he acquires more and more property. He has more property now, but this fellow becomes less richer or becomes more and more poorer. But he is not bothered. Tamanna he has crossed the competition level from materialistic levels to intelligence, something that is abstract, something that cannot be seen at all, something that cannot be gathered. something that cannot be won over. So this fellow becomes very rich. With this person, now to compete with Tamanna, he builds a house, a very big palace kind of house. He calls in the villagers and people from far off places only to show them his palatial house and then get their appreciation. Everybody will be dumbstruck looking at the house of Basavaya. They appreciate him very much. But again, before leaving, they all give a comment that the house that he has built is no wonder beautiful, but it is incomplete. Incomplete because Tamanna's books are not there in it. Once a person says this, once a visitor says this, the Basavaya feels more and more humiliated. And it was not just one person who told this, it was every other visitor who came there. Everybody started commenting, saying that the house was beautiful, but it was incomplete because it lacked Tamanna's books in it. So he becomes more and more humiliated. Now he understands that he has to go beyond this, and he really scratches his head to do something that he can go beyond Tamanna's level. At that point of time, there is a graceful thing that happens to Basavaya, but something very happy he has to be about. That is, Tamanna, he falls sick. He becomes ill and he is unable to recover from his illness. He falls sick and he is not able to compose any more of his beautiful works. That is when Basavaya thinks that he can do everything. He acquires all the property that Tamanna had and he becomes completely landless. This fellow becomes very rich. Tamanna is not bothered. He, as I told you, his level has reached beyond all these things. So he doesn't bother about anybody, losing even the whole of his property. But while Basavaya, he starts collecting the land and he becomes more and more richer. At that point of time, Tamanna thinks that he has to teach Basavaya a particular lesson. He has to make him understand that a rivalry and a competition in which there is no healthy feelings is a waste. So he wants Basavaya to realize that an unhealthy and a filthy competition leads to nowhere. He just wants to make him realize that friends also can be competitors. There could be friendship also amongst competitors. So he just wants to make him realize what mistake he is doing. So he decides, and then he decides to kill himself for the society. Killing himself here doesn't mean he is going to suicide. Killing himself, it doesn't mean that he is going to physically put an end to his life. He is not doing that. For the eyes of the society, in their sight, this man does not exist anymore. So Tamanna, one character that was there as Tamanna, as a character, he doesn't exist at all. So what does he do what does he do to make this character non-existent? He doesn't want to show his face again. So he leaves the village and goes away from the village, telling everybody that the character Tamanna does not exist at all. So he just leaves the village, leaves all his possessions, leaves behind all his acquires, and just goes away barehanded, just walks out of the village. Basavaya, now, it is not that the villagers know that this fellow has left and gone. For the villagers, they think that Tamanna is dead because he moves away overnight. It just vanishes, disappears from the village, is no more at all. But Basavaya, he feels that his life, which was full of competitions and activities and rivalry, now he feels that his life is meaningless. He has nothing to do. That's the beauty of life, dear students. Whenever we have work, we start cribbing. We grumble so much, we crib so much, we say, "Ayo, I have to do this much, I have to do that much. I don't know why I have to do all these things." See, one thought after the other, it continuously, like a chain, it keeps coming to us. But think of those days when you have no work at all. Think of those days when you have to just sleep and eat and just sit quiet. You will be killed by boredom. We don't realize that we have to, something, that energy that keeps us alive is nothing but work. We do not realize this. So this man, till he had a competitor, his life was beautiful. But now, once the whole thing is not there, Tamanna is not there, his property is not there, and he is the king, he reaches the top. But he feels his life is bored, he is bored, he is killed by boredom. He doesn't know what to do, and he feels that his life also has become a waste, it has lost its meaning. So in this thought, in this grumble, in this sad feeling, he also falls sick. He falls sick and he is not able to recover from his sickness. And this person is completely vanished. He also disappears. That means he is also dead. There is no Tamanna, there is no Basvaya, there is no rivalry, there is no competition. Those two people once who were very fond of doing something nice together, now both of them are not there. And both of them have rejected, and they have renounced the positions that they had. What will happen next? There is no, when Tamanna is not there, Tamanna is not there, Basvaya's life is meaningless. Now Basvaya also is not there. What should happen to Tamanna? So we have to understand how boring it would have been for Tamanna also. His life also was filled with boredom, and therefore he just goes away from that place and starts working as a gardener. Now, having lost his dear friend, dear rival, dear competitor Basvaya, Tamanna also feels that his life is miserable, it becomes empty. Therefore, that is when he leaves his village, walks far, far away from his village and comes to this place where the owner badly wants a gardener. And there he starts working. He puts in all the rivalry that he has. He puts in all the negative feelings he had towards Basvaya into his work and becomes a prosperous worker. That is what he tries to say to this lady who is dejected, disturbed and depressed in life, who is completely apprehensive. She is worried about her husband. She says, don't worry, everything will come to a fine end, because till the day the man has some kind of wealth in his hand, till that day each one of us, we live for some kind of vengeance, some kind of revenge. We don't know what revenge that we are taking up against. Against whom are we taking revenge? On what are we taking revenge? We will not know. But our life is completely filled with some kind of vengeance or revenge. But one fine day we will all understand that taking revenge or vengeance could not be the end of it. So that day your husband will come back. He is now at the moment, this owner is at that moment is very rich and he has got nothing else to do but enjoy his life. So he thinks that is the purpose of his life. Let him do it. Once he realizes that that itself is not life, enjoying money, enjoying wealth, somebody else has earned for him, that is not life. You have to earn your own wealth and then spend it. Then there is real satisfaction. The day he realizes, he'll come back and everything, he'll become normal. He'll only start working, and that is how he convinces the owner's wife, and then she is sent back. So here Tamanna wants to give a message that our life has to be filled with competition. It has to go to a kind of healthy competition, not just to rivalry. And he also gives a very small hidden message that life becomes meaningless if you do not work on your own and acquire your own property. So you need to do all these things and you need to become more and more prosperous. This is what is the theme of the story Gardener. Though it is a lengthy one, it has a beautiful message in it. So we have learned the story of the gardener, and I hope so it is in brief. The next part is equally important. We will have to discuss the question answers based on this lesson. So in the next part we will be learning the questions and answers. Questions on this, we will discuss the questions based on this lesson. Okay.